Hello, and welcome everyone. I'm Jessica Jacobson, editor of Beverage Industry, and today we have a special video interview with Todd Gilliam, industry leader for Americas at Rockwell Automation, to discuss the state of smart manufacturing. Thank you for joining me today, Todd.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. Well, to begin with, we've seen in CPG manufacturing that smart technology is gaining more attention. What are the main goals companies are looking to achieve through smart technology?
Yeah, simply put, Jessica, it's being driven out of necessity. I think, the more we talk to CPG clients, they're realizing that conventional approaches that they've taken to their production is just not going to really accomplish the desired business outcomes anymore. So they're really trying to solve those top business challenges that keep them competitive in the markets they serve. So it's really driven, out of they have to think about doing things differently, thinking outside of the box. The top challenges that we hear consistently are the ones that they are trying to address is number one, workforce and skill shortages, right? That's probably the most frequent, right? It's a different market than it was, let's say, pre-COVID, pre-2019. Second is operational complexity, the broad proliferation of SKUs, recipes, formulations, package sizes, dietary restrictions, right? We see this every day. Consumer demands change at lightning speed, right? They used to make the same product on the same line 24/7. Now it's frequent changeovers. It's lots of CIP cycles. Production has to be much more agile and flexible than it was even just a few years ago. Secondly, it's around risk, enterprise risk, and brand protection, whether it be in the form of keeping the product safe, keeping the people that operate the production floor safe, and then certainly not last but least data protection, right? Protection from cybersecurity, ransomware attacks, and that type of thing. Fourth is this pressure to accelerate innovation, to grow their business, leveraging these digital smarter technologies to shorten the distance between the information world and the operational world. And then last but not least, environmental pressures. You want to be a good steward in terms of energy management, the communities in which you serve. So nearly all of these, if not, in any particular order, have been cited in our State of Smart Manufacturing report. And in fact, these changes aren't going away. In fact, they're becoming tougher. They're becoming bigger challenges year after year as the new normal becomes do more with less, right? Despite all of those headwinds, despite all of those challenges, you still have to meet production, you still have to get cans and bottles out the door. So nearly everyone agrees that we have to explore these things. We get a lot more of these questions about what are other producers like us, bottlers, beverage producers. What are other people like us doing? Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we keeping up? What things are ready for prime time? What things still need a little bit more exploration or proof points? And we see it across multiple lines of business, right? It's not just the usual engineering or operations suspects. It's IT now. It's supply chain. And it's getting executive sponsorship to break down the silos between those lines of business. So, short answer to your question is we don't see a lot of just exploring technology for technology's sake. The appetite for that, has gone away. Like we did see some of that in the last few years, but now it's about we have real business challenges to solve. We have real desired outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and doing it the old way it isn't necessarily the best answer. We have to kind of consider or explore these new alternatives, these new technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what you've seen, what digital investments are CPG manufacturers directing their expenditures toward?
Yeah, it's really around the use cases I mentioned to solve those business challenges. So if I said workforce or skill shortages was a top challenge that we hear, it's what can we do with the workforce that we do have? How can we empower and augment their capabilities through better visibility, through better information, through leveraging augmented or virtual types of technologies, digital work instructions. We want to give more to the resources that we do have because they're scarce. If it's that operational complexity piece, it's how do we increase the ability to be more agile and flexible in the way we produce. Um, can we shorten the cycles of what we do to get faster time to market on the product? If it's that risk piece, how do we protect the data? How do we protect our resources? How do we keep the product safe? Um, if it's that accelerating innovation, what are things, as I referenced earlier, what are things that other people are doing that are proving successful, that are delivering faster ROI and payback, and can be referenced, in a real capacity, not just, a theoretical or academic type of exercise. And then, again, on the environmental piece, what are ways of not only just measuring how we track and utilize energy in the process, but optimizing it, coming up with better ways through the leveraging of these technologies to be more energy efficient and reduce the amount of scrap in the production cycle. So again, those, and I'll give some real world examples, the ones that are working, the ones that we've seen, effective, and they're generating more momentum and investment from our clients. One example could be the use of digital twin, what we call, emulation or simulation in a virtual environment before we go physically commission a new line or a new production process to see how it's going to react, what kind of bottlenecks are going to occur, what kind of workforce requirements are going to be um, proliferated along the line. Where do we need operators? Can we operate with fewer? Can we, move these operators or these resources to another area to do more value add type of exercises? So that's gaining a lot of ground. This emulation piece, and because the technology is supporting the ability to do that. The cloud, leveraging of cloud in an industrial environment is a big deal now, right? We might not have been able to do that effectively or scalably just a few years back. Um, AI, artificial intelligence is one of the top topics across all of industry, but our clients are asking for practical examples, right? Not just, as I said, academic exercises. Where can it be leveraged, effectively in a plant floor environment? It's different from a consumer environment. Um, Again, to give the workers that we do have better information or to supplement their decision making through, agentic or causal AI types of solutions. I referenced cloud or SaaS based, but the ability to integrate edge computing to cloud. Cloud can do things like pattern recognition. It can be leveraged for ERP production, MES, now predictive maintenance, but making that effective in the real time environment that requires high speed, low latency, things like that. So that combination of both edge and cloud. Another area is around the movement of material, right? That's a big requirement of what a production cycle might look like. So the use of autonomous mobile robots um, that can basically optimize a route to move material, whether it be raw materials, work in process, or even finished goods inventory from point A to point B effectively and with as few resources as possible, but safely. Um, and then one, last example would be the use of model predictive control. And what I mean by that is the ability to kind of measure multiple complex parameters in parallel to figure out how you can get greater accuracy on or greater throughput or optimization on the yield, the output, whether it be on the process side or just figuring out how can we get the most juice out of the lemon possible, to coin a phrase. But that those are just some real world examples where it's not just a theoretical discussion anymore, where we're seeing real world results, um, effective ROI in short payback periods.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you touched upon this a little bit, but we've seen that artificial intelligence and machine learning are some of the most discussed of digital advancements in recent years. How are manufacturers hoping to use these platforms in the future?
Yeah, to your point, our smart manufacturing report showed that 95% of our respondents, and we're talking about a couple of thousand responses across the industry, indicated that they either have already invested or plan to invest in some kind of artificial intelligence or machine learning in the industrial context, whether it be generative, causal, agentic AI, any of those types of things in the next 5 years. So they're either already on the way or they've started some type of initiative. So, that number's up exponentially based on if we had done the poll, say 2 or 3 years ago. And this is our 10th version. So we've seen a steady, incline in that type of response. And again, as I said earlier, it's about solving those real world types of, challenges of like we still got to get production, we still got to do it with fewer resources, we still have to do it with these raw material challenges and supply chain constraints that we have. So the ability to kind of supplement that manufacturing process is where we're seeing those real types of investments occur. These can be I would say what AI has done really well is that collection of data, right? These are things that we have these different silos of data across the organization, and for the most part, they live in either the equipment or the systems that serve a particular part of the process, of part of the line. But the ability to collate that and contextualize it across various sources so that it means something, and so we're not in this full-time exercise of just trying to figure out which data is valuable. Not all data are created equal. So how do we go through picking out the ones that can change the game, that can basically provide us better visibility, better insight going forward? So a few real world examples. Again, I kind of like to get to the ones that have practically been deployed by our beverage producers, or things like the leveraging of soft sensing, which is maybe a parameter that can't be measured directly for whatever reason. It's not safe, and maybe it's not a good environment to be measured. But the use of soft sensing through parameters of other assets, motors, drives, to be better about predictive maintenance, to better real-time decision making. We have a solution called Guardian AI, which leverages parameters that already exist. And in this case, for example, variable frequency drives that operate, the equipment in the line, and noticing patterns to say, hey, when these things occur and when these things align a certain way, something's about to fail. And you should start thinking forward about either issuing a work order, maybe issuing a replenishment purchase order, putting some kind of proactive notice in case or in place to better predict where the next issue could be. Another, I'll use a specific beverage reference, is around filling a container, right? The perfect fill, we call that reducing product giveaway. You have to fill to the amount or the volume that's on the package by law, but most of our clients overfill, right? To a certain level, they maybe go a few percentage points over, to be on the safe side, to make sure that they're at least to the level. It leads to some inconsistencies, but also it leads to just giving away product at for free. And so if we can tighten that band of accuracy through something we use called Logix AI, right? Is this soft inference, the ability to say, if we can tighten up the accuracy and then lower it closer to the set point, that's better predictive output. It's getting the perfect fill level every time. And then another one is around quality, right? A practical example is using vision to compare a product output or a product state to a perfect state, right? And you can compare against thousands or millions of other previous examples. And vision systems have been around a long time, but the ability to kind of, leverage that cloud as well as AI decision making to say, this is actually a bad quality. This is not a hallucination, or this is not a false positive, if you will, on a quality or defect situation, but tightening that ability to get the right product out every time predictably. And so those are kind of examples that I would say have proven success already, where we're starting to get momentum built and people wanting to replicate that level of output. The final one I would say, and this is more of a behind the scenes, is the ability to generate code that controls the equipment, right? This can be a very time consuming, sort of grunt work level type of thing. And even newer workers would say, well, I need better ways to understand how programs work and how they're written, is using Copilot solutions, design Copilot to generate code or even interpret code that may already exist. And so tightening up that sort of, production level planning that would go into putting out new equipment or a new line.
Great. Well, to close out our conversation, as CPG manufacturers navigate employee retention and recruitment, how do they view digital advancements as a means to address these challenges?
It's a great question, and it's one that I'm a bit passionate about in our industry, because I feel like what we've seen is the producers that are embracing these technologies that I referenced before become better destinations for that scarce labor force, right? People want to be challenged. They want to do cool and cutting edge types of things, right? Younger workers are for the most part, this current generation of workers that are entering the workforce are a digital native, population. They've grown up with these ubiquitous technologies in their pockets. Their consumer experience or their home experience has, been what you would expect in a smart device, whether it be a smartphone or a tablet, or even now, wearables in the form of smart glasses and things like that, right? So if you as a producer are leveraging or exploring or investing in these types of applications, it becomes a more attractive workforce destination, right? If you're, let's say, training a new hire, and I've had beverage, manufacturing vice presidents or directors, and would say that the old motto would be you hire a new person and they're trained by someone who's been in the organization for decades, in some case, 25, 30 years, and they're training a younger workforce. The newer model now is that that person who's doing the training may only have been there a few months longer than the new hire, right? So that cycle is much shorter, right? So the ability to kind of capture that tribal knowledge, that tribal information, with the use of video technologies or embedded work instructions, or recording the expert knowledge of someone who's been there a long time for posterity, so that okay, that person retired or they aged out of the workforce, but that information is captured. Or even the ability to leverage your OEM or system integrator types of suppliers through remote access, who could then use augmented or virtual reality to show how to troubleshoot a piece of equipment. Or instead of printed bound manuals that sit on the shelf and you have to go pull out and use on the plant floor, maybe that's in the form of a short form content video, right? That's how we learn a lot these days, is we look it up on on video, and we watch a 2 minute tutorial, as opposed to pouring over thousands of pages of a printed manual. That's how the newer generation of workers expects to learn. That's how they have shown much more quicker response time and shorter learning curves. And so if you're doing those types of things, if you're leveraging those technologies, I would say that you become not only a more attractive employer, but your retention rate is probably going to improve, right? People stick around because they want to be challenged. They want to, explore new things. And so I say that goes back to my opening comment of, like, a lot of these things are being driven by necessity with these producers. That if you want to compete against your other peers for a finite pool of labor and workforce retention model, you have to differentiate yourselves, whether that be through just a culture, but also, the ability to kind embrace these technologies as a long-term destination to give people opportunities to grow and to thrive in this type of model. So many of our clients are starting to come around to that realization and say, hey, we should um, we should be a lot more open to proactively exploring what other folks are doing, like in our lane that we swim in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Todd, for taking the time to discuss the state of smart manufacturing.
Yes, thank you for the questions.
And for more insights on the beverage market, please visit www.bevindustry.com for articles, videos, podcasts, and more.